Good afternoon. I'll be offering a reading of Edwidge Danticat's Clare of the Sea Light, entitled Like Rare Butterflies, Accessing Hope and Degradation. On January 12, 2010, an earthquake ravaged Haiti, and because of the media attention given that year, Haiti is now popularly defined as one of the poorest countries in the world. For environmentalists as well, Haiti is an example of an ongoing tragedy as soil erosion ruins the mountainsides and damages water resources. Beneath this infamy, however, Haitian writers and artists have created and continue to produce beautiful and important work. Juxtaposed with Haiti's reputation as a tragic space is this thriving locus of creativity and culture. Nadev Menya, a professor of literature in Haiti, describes this juxtaposition well. She says, traditionally depicted as the epitome of all that is wrong with the world, it is portrayed as a failed state, unable to care for its citizens. Its conditions are dire, its prospects bleak. And yet, there has been, and continues to be a vibrant literary tradition in Haiti. She goes on to ask, how can we reconcile these two seemingly contradictory ideas of Haiti as barren, savage land and Haiti as culturally rich? In this paper, I offer a reading of Danticat's Clare of the Sea Light, her 2013 novel, as an answer to this question. Menya goes on, or argues that the global imagination about Haiti has leaned on the trope of exile as a way of explaining Haiti's hopeless reality. Haitian writers simply escape the country and thus are free to access beauty and hope in more protected spaces. But Danticat's novel rejects escape as a viable option for Haitians. Instead, she offers a nuanced view that demonstrates the social, economic, and environmental devastation of a small Haitian town and offers characters who access agency and hope by redefining their communities. Grappling with such questions is not rare among Haitian writers. Indeed, Michael Dash has written about the crisis he perceives and how one might represent the Haitian reality, while Raphael Lucas has argued his notion of degradation best acknowledges the social, environmental, and economic decline of the country, what he calls, quote, a progressive and profound process of decomposition. Importantly, embedded within his concept of degradation is a rejection of literature which romanticizes Haiti and asserts the creation of space for literary characters who acknowledge, quote, the drive to revolt as a constitutive element of the human condition and human dignity, and as a means of exercising the process of degradation. In other words, Lucas suggests Haitian literature must both acknowledge devastation in the social, physical, and cultural environment, and, importantly, access creative responses to these changes. For decades, Danticat has represented Haiti to herself and to the world. Her writing is characterized by compelling characters who have often made tragic mistakes. She unrelentingly pursues the devastating consequences on victims and others, and in this way, she has explored much of the history of a country plagued by narcissistic dictators. However, Danticat's view of such traumatic histories also creates space, importantly, for hope and even perhaps redemption. In Clare of the Sea Light, Danticat certainly manifests Lucas's theme of degradation. She complicates her text in such a way that, at times, obscures the pending devastation with the hint of redemption, while at other moments allows the degradation of the village, people, and of their environment to be complete. The text is set in the town of Verros, situated not far from the capital of Port-au-Prince, and was, quote, home to about 11,000 people, 5% of them wealthy or comfortable. The town is, quote, crammed between a stretch of the most unpredictable waters of the Caribbean Sea and an eroded Haitian mountain range. And the people of the town are palpably losing their claim on existence as the mountain and the sea, those stable foundations upon which their livelihood depends, are declining at a speed beyond sustainability. I argue that as the community of Verros suggests or struggles to find hope, Danticat uses the instability of the natural world to demonstrate the unstable nature of this poor community. The book opens as Nosius, a fisherman and the father of the titular figure Claire, approaches the sea. Nosius and many other fishermen in his impoverished community live in a shack on the sea. While much of the coast of the Caribbean has been privatized by wealth and resorts, Danticat importantly allows the sea to play a democratizing role. In this text, the poor live steps from the ocean, not only having access to beauty, but also basing their livelihood on the fish therein. As Nosius walks toward the sea, the text reads, "He first heard a low rumbling like that of a distant thunder, then saw a wall of water rise from the depths of the ocean, a giant blue-green tongue, trying, it seemed, to lick a pink sky. Just as quickly as it had swelled, the wave quickly cracked. Its barrel collapsed, pummeling a cutter called Fifine, sinking it and Caleb, Nosius' dear friend and fisherman, aboard." In these opening lines, Danticat makes it clear that she will offer no easy reading of community, the environment, or the relationships between the two. Later in the text, she explains, quote, "People like to say of the sea, the lan me ken be kra. The sea does not hide dirt. It does not keep secrets. The sea was both hostile and docile. You could take as much as you wanted from it, but it too could take back," end quote. The sea is the foundation of welfare and well-being for Nosius and his friends, and yet it remains untrustworthy and fickle at best, dangerous and cynical at worst. It is both a democratizing source of life and a dangerous threat. She further complicates her presentation of the wild, uncontrolled power of nature by showing that the sea, like the town of Villeros, which surrounds it, is a victim of sorts. Here, Danticat's commitment to what Lucas calls degradation is clear. The Caribbean Sea has been polluted so consistently that it is no longer a safe and reliable source of life for fish. Danticat writes, "La pêche," fishing, was no longer as profitable as it had once been. It was no longer like in the old days when he and his friends would put in a net in the water for an hour or so and then pull it out full of big, mature fish. Now they had to leave nets in for half a day or longer, and they would pull fish out of the sea that were so small that in the old days they would have been thrown back. But now you had to do with what you got, even if you know deep in your gut that it was wrong. For example, to keep baby conch shells or lobsters full of eggs, you had no choice but to do it. You could no longer afford to fish in season, to let the sea replenish itself. You had to go out nearly every day, even as the seabed was disappearing, and the seagrass that used to nourish the fish was buried under silt and trash. So Danticat complicates the roles of victimizer and victim. Not only did the sea senselessly end Caleb's life, it also provides a living for the fishermen and access to beauty for the poor. Similarly, the fishermen are both forced into poverty and long hours by the declining fish population and willing participants in the destruction of the sea. Danticat offers similar readings of other major environmental catastrophes that are slowly destroying the town and the people therein. One, which we will not discuss here, is an invasive plague of dying frogs. It's worth mentioning that many in the town go on to compare the plague of frogs with the plague of gangs that are infecting many parts of the town. In this way, Danticat again subtly links the environmental decline of the town to the societal ills that the community faces. She goes on to present a similar juxtaposition between the devastating soil erosion of the mountains and the desperation people feel to migrate out of the mountains and eventually out of the country. Many of the townspeople's extended families live in these mountains, whose rural communities are sustained by subsistence living and are the point of origin for a stream migrating into better opportunities. However, many of these sojourners end up living in a shack on the beach, as Nosius and his wife did, or they become stuck in the slum of Cité Perdue, an area recognizable because, as Danticat writes, the sea on the side of the road had turned from blue-green to brown to ashen black. Danticat's characterization makes it clear that this is a place of decay and decline. And despite the fact that many leave the mountains in search of upward mobility, their paths actually end here in the slums. So Bernard Dorian is a beloved character in the text whose family comes from these mountains, productive, talented, and hopeful for increased mobility. Instead, the Dorians become trapped in Cité Perdue. Although they make the best of their situation, opening a popular business and providing a good life for their son, he is killed in a senseless ring of gang violence and police corruption. Spoiler alert if you have not read the text, sorry. His boyfriend laments Bernard's death and importantly critiques this myth, this ongoing myth of migrating improvement by saying, he felt burdened by the thought of Bernard being suspended somewhere in a hillside grave To fight so much to live in town, then to return to a mountainside grave? What was the use of sacrificing so much to leave a place only to end up exactly where you'd started? So Danticat further demonstrates the instability of this mountain and community by implying that the ultimate hope for mobility is to migrate to the United States. In the text, there are two groups of people who move to the U.S., and Danticat undermines the success of both groups by highlighting the cost involved. The upper class of Verreaus send children and wives to the U.S., but Danticat makes it clear that they sacrifice a sense of belonging and fracture themselves in the process. Indeed, she describes these migrating women and children with a string of hyphenated labels, signifying their fraught selves. The text reads, "The children of these women and their Verreaus men, the Canadian, French, Mexican, or U.S. educated sons and daughters." In a country so familiar with the pain of exile, Danticat's description of the wealthy intentionally choosing such a fractured life describes the hopelessness of perceived options, even among the upper classes, and the destruction to the community that such choices leave. For the poor, this hope of migration is even more painful. For the few who access the drive or means to make it to the United States, Danticat exposes a different kind of sacrifice. A character in the text admits, she saw these people return to town at Christmas or in summertime with extravagant hairstyles and expensive-looking clothes, but their eyes always betrayed them. All the humiliation they had endured could be detected there. Their skins betrayed them too. The burns from the dry cleaner steamer or the car wash or the restaurant kitchens, as visible as brands on animals. Danticat consistently challenges the social trends that undermine Haitian society, both by demonstrating that mobility is only available to a privileged few and that such mobility comes with a great cost. Danticat links the devastating effects of migration to the environmental catastrophes of flooding due to the eroding mountain soil. Lucas has described these twin disasters as devastating, arguing that, quote, "the degradations are displayed with spectacular amplitude in the urban and rural environment. The rural milieu, made fragile through degradation of soils due to exposure and erosion, experienced an exacerbation of the phenomenon of the urban exodus." So here we see two forces of migration and erosion damaging the social, economic, and physical environments in the text. Lucas goes on to describe the danger of flooding. One of the obsessive, and he emphasizes obsessive metaphors in the writings of Haitian authors is that of devastating waters, this recurring theme that sweeps everything along, end quote. Danticat indeed writes of such a scenario. Gaël, an important figure in the text, quote, "couldn't help but worry that the rivers might swell again, bringing mudslides down from the hills. The other houses, newer yet shabbier, had been dragged downstream year after year in flash floods, many with families inside." Importantly and characteristically, Dante offers a much more nuanced view than simple disaster striking. Similar to her description of the sea, this threat is a democratizing force, for although Gaël is among the few privileged upper class, her wealth is no match for the environmental decline and process. Danticat wonderfully complicates the problems of erosion and flooding even further by, like her treatment of the sea, making the rich and the poor victims of the environmental decline and, importantly, victimizers of the environment. A business leader in the town, quote, "often held meetings in the shop with the peasants who lived up and down river from them, warning them that the rivers were swelling in response to lack of trees, the land erosion, the dying topsoil. What do you want us to do, Monsieur Levard?" they'd ask him in return. "Help us find something to replace the wood we need for charcoal, and we will stop." For Danticat, environmental danger and decline is not just a useful metaphor for the degradation of society. It's also a lived reality, both caused by and endangering the people of this village. In many ways, Clara the Sea Light systematically rejects hope. Tellingly, the mayor of the town is also the undertaker. Caleb is drowned by the sea. Bernard is murdered. Parent-child relationships throughout the text are strained and broken. Efforts at migration are thwarted or achieved with dissatisfying effects. The sea is dying. Gangs are thriving. Frogs are rotting. Hills are sliding. Trees are disappearing. Degradation abounds. And yet, Danticat offers the possibility of a distant way forward. In spite of all the sadness, impending doom, and poverty, Nosius, our fisherman and Claire's father, draws to himself and creates a sustainable community. Because he is a single working father, his community seamlessly surrounds his daughter, meeting her needs. During Caleb's wake, he thinks one of the neighbors had probably brought her a plate of food or had invited her in to eat, just as someone always did whenever he was at sea. On the day that Claire is born and her mother dies, Nosius creates community by silently asking a wealthy woman, the aforementioned Gael, to breastfeed his newborn baby. Elsewhere, Danticat has said, quote, "We eat, and so food easily becomes symbolic of life itself, of the people who love us. It is their way of showing their desire to take care of us, to sustain us. You know food is our primary link, our first link to our mothers, and therefore our first link to our motherland." So in the midst of so much despair, Danticat creates Nosius, who creates a community of parents for his child, and in so doing, a spirit of shared survival, of generosity instead of greed, takes hold. Indeed, the text ends with Gael, the wealthy and shared mother, and Nosius, the poor and broken fisherman, pulling a young, despairing boy up out of the sea as they try to save his life. Claire returns, quote, to see her father and Madame Gael, whose own sorrows could have nearly drowned them. She had to go down to the water to see them take turns breathing into this man, breathing him back to life. It's a great image. Although she did not offer restoration for the environment or a way to divert the devastating path we are on, Danticat does challenge the myth of exile and problematizes, or at least complicates, Lucas's notion of degradation. In so doing, she offers a semblance of hope in this wounded and finally connecting community. Nosius the fisherman, because he is willing to find life in wounded people, becomes for us an image of hope. I will close with a description of his boat. His sail was now a patchwork of band names and long past dates for shows at the seaside speakeasies or the plaza in the middle of the town. The other fishermen had tame, grasshopper-shaped, unicolored sails, but Nosius' sails were like rare butterflies. Thank you.